Do you want to know how to create various ad sizes for Facebook and Instagram? This class explores the design process of how to design various social media sizes. We will first create our base ad and then work through our sizing guide that's attached to this course and adapt our ad to a multitude of different dimensions and sizes. This class focuses on the graphic design side of digital marketing and less on the copywriting. This class shows my raw design process and has been filmed without any pre-planning. I wanted to show my raw process so you can see me thinking through issues of sizing and layout. So join me for a class that details this critical design process and helps you think about how to lay out and design your social media images for Instagram and Facebook. A big part of my job as a designer is to design graphics for use on digital platforms. I wanted to show my raw and realistic design process I go through using a company very similar to my own client. What you're seeing is my authentic process, and little has been planned out, so you can see the why behind the design choices I made. So sit back and enjoy the process. So here we are in Adobe Illustrator to do our mock-up digital ad. I'm going to do a generic kind of horizontal ad because you're mostly going to be working with the horizontal space. There'll be a lot of instances where we're going to be working with square dimensions and also vertical, but I like to kind of start off with this horizontal version because I feel like it's easier to adapt to the other sizes. So here we go. So I have these mock-up logos I work for a real high-end mall, regional mall, town center, but I wanted to make up a different one just for client privacy and kind of do more of a mock-up version. So I kind of whipped these up, just kind of did an oak leaf trace vector, and I did two different versions because most clients will have a vertical version of their logo and a horizontal version, and you're definitely going to need to have both of those options when we're doing really small, tight display ads. We're going to need to really maximize our logo and make sure that it's flexible because we're going to have some really tight spaces we're going to have to work that logo in and be readable. So I have those as kind of brand assets as well as the little leaf. I have a photo I'm already interested in using. This is going to be a high-end mall, a town center type place. And I also have a list of the stores that they want to promote. So I kind of have some basic elements. I don't have a call to action yet, and we're going to figure that out after we put the basic elements of the ad together. When I put together a digital ad, I put together kind of the basic version because there are going to be different variations depending on what social media platform, whether it's going to be a regular post or a paid post. There's so many different variations that we're going to need to come up with. So I do something a little bit more on the generic side, and then we can go out and do different variations after that. So I have our photo, so I'm just going to, what I love about picking out photos for social media posts is I love to find them where I have a lot of extra room on the left, right, top, and bottom sides because you're going to have to adapt this photo to so many different sizes. The more cropping room that you have for your photo, the more flexible it's going to be. So I found this one to be fairly flexible. I can use this on a vertical and I can use this on a horizontal ad. Let's go ahead and get the right sizing for this ad. So I'm just going to go ahead and kind of crop it, put it off the page. I want to leave maybe a column of white space to kind of stack our restaurants and our stores and also our logo at the bottom. So I'm just going to leave a little area for that. And anything that bleeds off the edge, I'm just going to go ahead and take my rectangle tool and I'm just going to crop it just to kind of block that out in my mind. And I'm going to get my direct selection tool. Let's go ahead and find the right cropping for this. I want to focus on the bag for sure. Shopping. There's two different items here. We have jewelry and luggage and bags. So I want to make sure we focus on that. So I want to start to figure out what logo I'm going to use. So since this is going to be a vertical orientation where I'm going to be placing the logo, that'll be an easy choice. I'm going to get my vertical version of the logo. I want to leave a little room for a call to action, but since I'm not sure how much room I'm going to have left over, I'm going to wait on that. Let me go ahead and bring our store names in. And so in terms of picking a font choice for this, we have two different fonts here from the logo branding that we want to pull from. So let's find out which one we think works better. So this is a sans serif, And let's close the spacing between the lettering. So that's one option. Let me do all caps. And let's add some spacing and white space between all these. So let's make it smaller and add some more spacing between the lines. Add a little more leading. Call it leading. So that's an option. Center align might look a little bit better. And let's check the weight on this. So right now I have semi-bold, but let me see how regular looks. And I'm going to try light, but I have a feeling that's not going to be a strong enough weight to show up because really you're going to see this ad about this size. This is the size you're going to see it if it's a Facebook post in your Facebook feed. So it's good to zoom out and kind of be able to see how it's really going to be viewed. So let's flip back to semi-bold. And let's add a little spacing. I like some spacing in my lettering, and let's make it a little smaller and close the leading down a little bit. I want to make sure I have ample white space between these edges so it'll help the design breathe a little bit. So let's see, do we like that? That's an option. I'm going to copy and paste that, and I'm going to try this other serif font in the Simon Oaks. And I need to close the spacing because I just don't have that much room. And shrink it down to the same thing we did. Let's make it all caps. And let's add some leading. Let's center align. Or you know what, we could do a left align here. Let's see what that looks like. And I believe I have some weight options here. This is Marion. I do have a bold, so we may have to use the bold for the digital ad. And we would probably use a lighter weight for a print ad, since that's going to come out a little better than a digital. Digital, everything is so much smaller. So you really got to increase the weights on your fonts and use bolder weights. So there is an option. I feel like since the logo is such a center aligned logo that we almost have to follow that throughout this area. So since this is such a strongly centered logo, let's do center align for our text as well. And let's really stretch that out. That was almost too much white space. We can stretch it out a little bit. So I'm liking that. I think that looks nicer, or more nice than the serif. So we have kind of two options here. And there's something about the serifs that give it a nice look. You see a lot of sans serifs in digital ads, so it's really refreshing to see a serif. So now that we're starting to get kind of a basic layout going, let's fine tune some things and make sure we have the proper spacing. So I'm just going to make sure this is center aligned with this white column. So I'm just drawing a simple box and then just doing some center, go up here to my align panel, making sure everything is nicely aligned. So I'm going to group that together, align all of these elements, bring that back. There we go. And something about that, I don't think the font's outlined yet, so it's not aligning properly. So I'm just going to optically align that. So let's zoom out. That looks good. So we need a call to action. We kind of have the list of stores, and this is kind of our full ad, quote unquote. So this will be used for our larger images. So Facebook post, Instagram post, anything smaller like that, like mobile ads or display ads, we're going to have to maybe remove all the listed store items and have a simple call to action or website. So there's going to be probably 10 to 12 different variations that we're going to do in this class, and it's usually what I do with clients. So this is exactly what I do with my current client that's in a similar industry. So you're going to kind of get a little bit of an insight of what I do on a daily basis in terms of developing their social media campaigns and doing all the graphics for it. So call to action. I'm just going to get a simple box. I'm not 100% sure the call to action. That's something the client will come up with, but I'm going to do a simple shop now, although that's probably not going to be the final call to action, but we're going to go ahead. It's going to be about that length of text. And so this is a very simple ad. It doesn't have a lot of color. And so we can really take that opportunity to really draw attention to the call to action by making it a strong color. So I'm thinking for this button or whatever the call to action is going to be, that it'd be kind of a very simple, strong color. So here we go. Let's go ahead and drag this down. There's going to be a couple different areas. We don't want it to be too obnoxious. Obnoxious? I can't speak today. We don't want it to be yelling at you too much because this is a very subtle, simple, high-end ad. And so we need to be careful about sizing, and then we get the right balance between the design elements. So I want to make this small, but not so small you can't read it. But since it's going to be a bright color, that'll help us in being able to draw attention to it. So you notice the sizing, I think that's probably going to be the right sizing for the call to action. Maybe just a hair bigger. But any bigger, it's going to just draw too much attention. It's going to lose the elegance of the ad. So we could do this lower left, but then it starts to get interfering with the product. Right here, the Louis Vuitton bag. So perhaps right here in the middle where we have some extra space. And let me just go ahead and come up with a good call to action here. So I'm shifting it over to the left and just kind of continuing to play around with this call to action. And so there's another thing I could do to help kind of soften this a little bit more is I can go up to shape and add, instead of rounding all the corners, just round one of them. So I'm going to round this lower right hand side, which will be right here in this area. I'm going to make that a nice round pill shape. I'm just increasing it. I need to do a little bit more. Maybe double it. So it just kind of softens that sharp edge a little bit. And it also gives us the ability to tuck it up here to make it more like a tab. And let me bring this down ever so slightly. So that's going to be more of a tabbed kind of look. And it won't really interfere with the ad. It lets this breathe and it lets this be clean. And we could do the same thing, just kind of move this down here. So that could work well. And let me try some other colors. I really like this blue because it matches with her watch. But let me try that orange color again. See, that's too much. They're touching each other, so that's not going to work. Let me try one more color, maybe a really bright yellow. I think the blue is probably closer to what we want to do. So I'm going to adjust this just a tiny bit, and I think we'll be ready. Our basic standard ad will be ready, and we'll be able to take this and adapt it to many different sizes using some of these elements, all of these elements, and maybe a couple of new elements. It took about 5 minutes and made a few adjustments. I decided to make it a lot smaller and more understated. I also decided to switch it to the other font because I just couldn't get the sans serif to work, so I now have the serif font. And for the edge, I decided to add a little angle to the edge as opposed to having the rounded tabbed look. So just a few adjustments that I've made, and that's just noodling around with it. And another adjustment is, since we're playing off this little bit of a turquoise in her bracelet and bringing that out in the call to action, I thought, wouldn't it be neat to incorporate more color and doing every other line that same blue color. And also, instead of making the logo that blue color, because that would go against their branding standards, as they always have their logo either in white or dark gray for their branding standards. So I didn't want to add color because a lot of clients don't like it when you add color to their logo if it's not as a part of their branding package. So I'm leaving that alone, but I can do this little bit of a blue in the line there. So I can get away with bringing out a tiny bit of blue in the logo and a little bit of blue here. So what do you guys think? Do you like the blue, or do you like it all gray? Or if we did not like the blue there, we can make this a lighter gray, just something to add contrast to every other line, so it's not all blending in. Because if it was all the same color, I would read it as a list, and it would be hard to differentiate between the two different items. But when you do an every other one and you add contrast to every other line, it does help the eye digest the information. So there it is with every other light gray. Or I'm going to go ahead and copy this and do every other line the blue, and then we can kind of compare. And I've done this almost exact thing I'm showing you right here for my real world client, and we've used it for a winter campaign one time where we used a really bright pink photo. A lady was wearing a very bright pink hat, and we did kind of every other line like this, and it really helped to bring the ad together with the color unity. So for now, let's stick with the blue, and if it doesn't work out on some formats as we start to break this down and to do different versions, then we can just go back to the gray if we think it's too much color. So we'll just play around and have both options. We can present both to the client. If they approve this basic ad, then I can start to create all the different versions based on what they like and what they approve. So I think we're ready to go. This is the basic version. Let's create a couple of different versions with some different combinations of elements. I want you to open up the sizing guide that should be included in the section part of the class. You'll be able to download it as an extra PDF. And I developed this exclusively for this class and for what I'm doing in this section. We're going to create almost all of these together. So we'll be able to create most of the paid ads and all the different post variations you'll have on both Facebook and Instagram. These are the two social media platforms we're going to focus on in this section. So we're just going to start with the top and work our way through. We're going to adapt the ad we just created to each one of these sizes, and you'll get to see kind of the process I go through and determining what elements get to end up on these sizes depending on its size. So we're going to start out with the first one, which is going to be your standard Facebook post, which is 1200 by 630 pixels right here. And what's great about this is this could be a regular standard post that you post on your business page or your client's page, but it can also be used for paid ads. So if you ever set up a paid ad on Facebook, this is usually the required pixel size. So let's go ahead and resize. This is our standard kind of a random size that we came up with. This is our base ad, I guess you could call it. So let's resize this. We're going to go back to our sizing guide, 1200 by 630. So I'm just going to go document setup, go 1230, or 630 by 1200. Let me double check that size. Yep, 1200 by 630. Great. And what I love about designing in Illustrator is I could do several different artboards. Let me go ahead and zoom out. So when we start to do all these other Facebook ads, I can have one document but have all my different social media sizes in there. A lot of designers design in Photoshop, and you can also use the artboard system there too, but I just love the way Illustrator is in the vector environment. So outside of photos, if I ever wanted to adapt any of my social media campaigns to a print campaign, everything's already vector, and it's going to be easy to size it up to a large poster size or a large banner. I already have it in vector format, as opposed to taking a digital ad in Photoshop and having to adapt that to be vector. It's much easier to take a vector and go back down to Photoshop and do a raster. So that's why I love Illustrator, is it's already in vector format. Everything I do, so easy to work with. Okay, so as we can see, there are some sizing differences between the base ad that we put together and the Facebook standard post. So what I'm going to do is I am going to just select all. We're going to go ahead and adapt it to have a similar. So this one looks like the dimensions, it's a little more wider than it is tall. So we're going to have some extra space on the right and left to work with. But it's not going to give us any extra room on the top and bottom. So we're still got the same amount, but now we need to stretch our image across a little bit or give ourselves a little more white space for this bar and let that breathe a little bit. And I can also increase the spacing between the lettering here now that I have a little extra breathing room. So I'm going to make that 300. Just zooming in here a little bit for you. So I widen the spacing just a tad, not too much because we don't want the ads to differ too much. And this is cropped, so let me just get my direct selection tool. I'm just showing more of the cropped area, bringing this out. Or I can decide to release the clipping mask and create a new one based on what I think works well. And this is such a great photo because I have so much to work with cropping wise. on the sides. We could even create a version where all this is white. I just had this idea, it just kind of came to me playing around. Ooh, that looks nice. You know, that would look really good as like a full page paid ad, like an Instagram story, where you have a little bit more of a wider space. That looks nice. What do you guys think? I wish I can get feedback from you to say, hey, I like the other version. Or no, I love this version. That looks just really high end. That looks great. So it's never too late to change your original idea. There is an issue with this version though, as I can see when I start to adapt it to the smaller digital sizes that this is not going to work quite as well. But you can have different variations. So this, you could probably get away from a branding perspective, having this version for your large, maybe your print ads. I think this would look really great for a print ad. But for digital, let's go ahead and stick with our white background, because I think this is going to be more readable on smaller sizes. So you got to think practically when it comes to this kind of stuff. So let me go ahead and draw a box right about here. I could go ahead and crop it. It's to whatever your client likes. That's what you go for. So if you think your client will like the other way, say, hey, I came up with a great idea. Do you like this version better? And they may say, yeah, let's do that one. Or you may say, hey, I'm having a hard time adapting that to other sizes. Let's go back to the other version. So you notice our white bar is much wider because we have some extra playing room, which is great because I think it breathes a little bit better than our original ad. Let's go ahead and click save. I think we can add a little bit more leading too. So let's increase the leading, or the spacing between the sentences or the lines. Great. And I'm just going to do a quick test to see how this logo is balanced on this white bar. So I'm just doing a quick visibility test, and that looks about right. Okay, so we are done with the Facebook ad. So I'm going to go ahead and export this to JPEG, but let me first do a couple more sizes first on the same area. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom out and create a new artboard. So it looks like the next size will be the profile image. So this will be the image that is shown on they may already have that, but if they want one specific for this company, let's do it. So that's 178 by 180. So instead of creating a new document, I'm just going to create a new artboard. So I'm going to go to Document Setup, Edit Artboards. Let me go back and remember my size, 178 by 180. 178 by 1, click on New, put it right down here. Go up here, 178 by 180, and there's our profile version. You can always go to Document Setup and Edit Artboards to shift it around. So this one's going to be super quick, super easy. I think I'm going to take this version of the logo, copy and paste it. I'm not going to have room for Town Center, or maybe I will. I don't think I'm going to have room. I wonder if the client's not going to like that. They're probably going to want to have Town Center, so you're going to want to work that in. So even though it's going to look better without Town Center, sometimes the client needs to have their full company name visible. So there that is. That was very quick. So profile image on timeline, that's okay. I think it's 40 by 40, so that'll probably scale down okay. Although that'll have to be the same image scaled down. But it's good to see it as 40 and 40 pixels to see if it'll. And another option is we can have this, but eliminate the whole text altogether at once, and then we can just have the leaf as an option. So they could just use that as a symbol for their profile image. So give them options. They can flip it around if they like. They can switch it out between different things. So let's go down to shared link thumbnail. So this is when you share a specific link, like if this was going to be an article or something on their web page that they're linking to and they want to use this cover photo. This is a good size to use. So 450 by 235. So 450 by 235. Create a new one right here. Make it 450 by 235. Let me double check. 235, 450, great. I'm going to shift my artboard up here, keep all my Facebook ads together, and then I'm going to create a separate one for Instagram. So this will be a shared link, so we might even just need this in the logo. They may not need all the specific stores because it is so small. If you think about it, 450 pixels is fairly small. So this is when we start to do different variations, but still have the same theme, but it's okay to be a little more flexible. So in this case, maybe I'm doing that. And let me crop this so I can get a final view of what the image is going to look like. I'm just going to crop it, make clipping mask, and then I'm going to send it all the way to the back layer. And I could take my direct selection tool, and since this is a wonderful photo, I have a lot of background space to work with. I can give myself more room for this logo to be shown bigger. So that is a cool option if you don't want to have all the details. And this is way too small. Anything 400 pixels, you're not going to want to list all your stores. That's going to be too much. So that's great. So a cover page. So on their Facebook, they're going to want to update with their campaign. So they would probably update with the cover photo size, which is going to be 820 by 312. And the thing about the cover photo, and I include this this is the sizing document I'm referring to that you can download. And this is a great example of what's happening. So you'll have a cover photo, and I'm going to go ahead and show you a screenshot of a cover photo on Facebook so you can kind of see what image I'm talking about. This is kind of the main fan page or main company page. You're going to have this extra wide shot at the top. But on the mobile version, it's going to be condensed to this pink area right here. So you're going to need to think about that when you do your cover photo, that the left and right sides shouldn't have any text and shouldn't have any vital parts of the body like a face. You don't want those to be cut off in mobile because most of your people are going to be a mobile audience. So let's think about that. So 820 by 312. Let's go ahead and create that. 820 by 312. I think I didn't need to add a new one. Oops. Let's do that again. So document setup. New. There we go. I didn't do a new one. I was editing the old one. So 820 by 312. 820. And what's great is once you do this, you'll have a template for future clients. So if you have a client that is doing some similar sizes, you could just erase their stuff and you already have all your artboard sized. So you don't have to do this every single time. I wonder why it's not allowing me to drag just the one artboard. Let's drag this down here. There we go. That works. So let's do our cover image. We're going to want to put all the store names on the cover image, I believe. And that's just working with a client similar to this for over 10 years. I kind of learned what they like. So the thing with the logo is they're going to have their profile pic somewhere close by. So don't duplicate the profile pic. So we may not need to have the logo included at all. So we're really going to focus on the image. So let's do this horizontally focused image. And remember about the cropping on the sides. So let's go back to our sizing guide. I'm just going to grab these right here. And this will be my little guide to let me know where it's cropped on the mobile version of the cover photo. So I can, let's see, release clipping mask. And let's drag this photo all the way out. This is why it's so nice to have a photo where it's not cropped so close to the person or the object. There we go. I'm going to duplicate this and crop it. Make a clipping mask, and I'm going to send that to the back. So great. So let's grab, we're not going to need a call to action because this is not necessarily the ad version, this is the cover photo. So we're going to be a little more generic. So we have our photo and we maybe list the store names, and we won't need to put the logo because the profile pic will be nearby with the company name. So this version is not going to work. We're not going to be able to transfer this over. So we're going to adapt this a little bit. Instead of doing a list format vertically, we're going to do a list format horizontally. So let's tighten the spacing just a tad. Let's do 200. And I'm going to bring it down here so you can kind of see what I'm doing. All I'm doing, and I'm going to put a couple spaces between each lettering. And I'm going to do a shift and do a bracket. Or you can manually put these in here. And I put the same spacing between each one. So just doing a different version of the list. And I'm thinking, I'm not sure how many are gonna fit on each line. Let's see if I can fit that last one. Make sure my spacings are all equal. So now I can go ahead and bring this up, and we are going to have an issue of things being cropped on the left and right sides. So it could be that this doesn't work with this format because technically this is the real size that when it comes to text. I can't have anything on the left and anything on the right. So all this is going to have to fit and be readable on this size. So can we do it? Does it look good? So that's what we're faced with. We could do a bar here to help bring it out. We could do a black bar and move that behind the layering system right here. We can bring out that beautiful blue. And let's bring this pink thing so we can see where it's cut off on mobile view. We could tighten the spacing, maybe only do 100. We can make it bigger. Tighten the leading. Just doing some small adjustments. Make that skinnier. But see, now it's covering up the product in this photo. And we don't want to cover up the product up there either. That's kind of the main focus of this ad. So there lies the issue. So this is where you're going to have to make some sacrifices. I wonder if we do something in the middle. That is an option. I can delete that just to kind of see what the cover image would look like. I think we can get away with more spacing. And I'm going back on what I'm just going back and forth on things to find the right match. We can have this fade into a gradient. I can feather this as well. I don't need that much feather. And reduce the transparency or the opacity. Just enough for it to become readable. Let me mess with this for a few minutes and see what I come up with. So I did finally find a solution. I decided to keep the bar in the middle, not to block the top or the bottom product, but I didn't want the bar to be so strong all the way across. So I decided to, if you see my gradient layer, I just created a 3-color gradient and used our blue color that we've used in the previous ads, but also did black, but made the opacity 0 and then made the opacity 0 on the other side. So it has this nice fade across. So let me go ahead and delete these two so you can kind of see it. So it has that fade that goes across that kind of just looks nicer, kind of matches the brand. So I might make this a tiny bit wider, and I think that works for that particular style ad. So there's our cover photo, and I believe we are done with our Facebook size ads. And this is usually the paid size ad. I think I've already gone over that. It's 1200 by 630, so that'll be probably the most widely used version by your client. So next is going to be Instagram. We're going to take everything we've done for Facebook and create our Instagram sizes. So here we are, we have our profile pic, cover photo, we have a link, kind of a generic photo that could be used as a link sharing if they're sharing an article or something from their website, and the main paid ad. So there's our little small Facebook campaign ready to go, and we're going to get ready to do Instagram. So I lined up all my artboards to make them nice and even. Not necessary, but kind of nice when we're going to integrate the Facebook on one side and Instagram on the other. So let's find out our Instagram sizes. So let's scroll over. What are we going to need? So standard square post. So this is going to be 1080 by 1080. And a lot of times you'll see smaller sizes, but the dimension will still be the same. This is the highest resolution that you can post. So I like to go with the highest resolution, the better. So 1080 by 1080. Let's add a new artboard and make it 1080 by 1080. And so this is going to be a totally new dimension for us. So we're going to have to really think about this ad a little bit. So let's adapt from the Facebook ad. Let's copy and paste. So this is where we get to kind of do some design thinking here. What's going to work the best? So let's stretch our photo as much as we can, maybe have it bleed off the top. And we could probably do a mirror opposite of this. So instead of a left-right split, we can do a bottom-top split. So we'll have the white section on the bottom. And so this is where it's nice to have two versions of our logo. So we had a vertical orientation, and now we have a horizontal orientation. So let's grab our horizontal one. This is going to work beautifully with this square size ad. Look how wonderful that fits. I think I need to adjust the logo a little bit. Got messed up. Let's make that line blue, since that's what we've been doing on our Facebook posts. I'm just sampling that blue line. So now it's no longer gray. Let's group this together and shift the logo around, because I'm doing this all live, so I haven't planned this out because I wanted to show my raw design process, kind of my thinking process. Definitely need the call to action. Let's copy and paste it, but we no longer need that shape since this is probably going to be center aligned. So I love that blue, but let's redraw it. We might be able to do a pill shape. So this is going to be your pill shape. So let's link. I'm just adding rounded corners. That's your pill shape. It almost looks like a pill that you would take. So we can do a pill shape, or we can do straight edge. So it just depends on the look we're going for. What I love to do with call to actions on this kind of split is I like to kind of divide it. So have it rest halfway between the bottom and the top. So notice how it's splitting the difference. So we could do pill. I think I like the rounded part, but let's test out the other one, because why not? Let's group that together. I think I actually like the rounded one. Great. So we do need to work in the store names on this version. It's big enough. It's 1080 by 1080. Let's definitely work in our names if we can. We will not be able to do that on all versions, so whenever we can. This might be a version where we could do what we were trying out before, and we might be able to get away with having it in white along the side. That could look really nice for Instagram, I think. We do need to have it pop out a little bit more, so there's a couple things we could do. Make it bigger. We could also add a darker background, very simply. Let me shift this over just a little bit. And I can make the image a little bigger too, and let's go ahead and crop it. You really want to do image-driven ads for Instagram because it's such an image-driven platform. So really focusing in on a nice zoomed-in image, just like this. I like the cropping of this for Instagram. We definitely want to list the store names. That's the main attraction of this mall. It's high-end, and you don't see a lot of these stores at certain. Of course, I made up a couple of these names just for privacy purposes. But this is the big selling point to the mall. So I'm just going to feather a black box. I'm going to go up and apply a feather. And let me go to appearance. There's my appearance panel. Let me increase that feather a little more. And let me do a preview. I'm just going to put this behind the text and make it a little more transparent. And this is going to help us read the text. I'm going to bring this over. This makes that background darker without having to bring that photo into Photoshop and editing the photo itself. It's just a little quicker way to do it. And I'm just taking the direct selection tool. I don't have to make it a box. I can just do it right over the text where I need to have it. And I might want to sample a darker color instead of doing straight black. I can sample this darker color right here, so it'll match the background a little better. So you see how I did that. So that's before, or that's after, and I'm going to go ahead and take it off. That's before. So this little line was really getting in the way of the readability of the text, but if I go back and add that in, it kind of softens that, and you can see the text pop out a little better. And let me bring up this, let me actually make a white box to go down here. And bring that down in the layering system. And I can probably afford to make the logo a little bigger. Clients love it when they make their logo bigger. Obviously we want balance, but they definitely love their logos. And let me switch this out one more time just to make sure. Oh gosh, I don't know which one I like better. We'll just stick with that. So let's make sure everything is center aligned. So I'm going to take this box that extends from the left to the right, and I'm just going to select our button. And I'm just going to do a center align up here. And that was already pretty good. So there's our Instagram ad. That's our main paid Instagram ad, but it can also be a standalone post, and we can put some hashtags in there with all these store names. So we can tag all the stores as well. So that's one variation. That's your standard square. With Instagram, you can actually do a horizontal version of your post and a vertical version of your post. So we're going to have that as options, although I do recommend the square size. That is the most engaged size according to several studies. But we're going to do this just to practice resizing our ad into different formats. And then we're going to do an Instagram story. And that'll be our last digital ad. We might do a couple of display ads just to show you some display ad sizes. Now that we're getting the hang of doing some resizing, I'm going to do these a little bit at a faster pace. So let's do a horizontal landscape post, so 1080 by 607. And you'll notice that 1080 is a common theme with Instagram. There's always a restriction to one of the sizes being 1080. So 1080 by 607. So let's do a new 1080 by 607. Let's do a new one. So 1080, and then it's going to be 607. So this is your horizontal post. And we could probably grab the Facebook and adapt it, since that's pretty darn close in dimension. We're just going to scale it down. Don't need that anymore. And that's almost a perfect fit. So what's great about being able to resize like this is I'm already done with this size. All I have to do is just release the clipping mask and redo this, or take the direct selection tool and change our clipping mask so that it extends out a little bit. Done. And since this is Instagram, I don't know, I may make the shop with this bigger, or I may not have a call to action on the Instagram. You want to do some slight adjustments depending on what platform you're on, because certain things may work better in Facebook than they do on Instagram. So let's move those over. Maybe make that a little bit bigger. And there's our our horizontal Instagram post. Let's zoom out and do our last one, which is going to be a portrait or a vertical version. So that's 1080 by 1350. 1080 by 1350. Oops, not a new document, new artboard. 1080 by 1350. So this is going to be pretty tall. Oh, let me do a new one. Make sure I have enough room. So this is going to be what's wonderful about doing digital design, digital advertising design in Illustrator, is this is very much the size of a standard page in a magazine ad. It's also the standard size of a poster and also a standard flyer size. So once I do this layout, I'll have the basis to do a lot of print ads with this particular size. So that's what's so wonderful about designing in Illustrator, is it's going to be very easy to adapt all this to digital, because almost every client that does a digital campaign like this has some kind of print ads along with it, at least ones that are a little bit bigger that I work with. So what size? I think this has probably got the most potential to adapt to this size. So let's go ahead and copy and paste it in and start to adapt. So I'm going to release the clipping mask and see what we can do to get this to cover a larger area. Go ahead and reclip it. Draw a box. Selecting both, right-clicking, and make clipping mask. Send that to the back. Okay, so here we go. I gotta do a different take on this. I know what I could do. So remember this one, our cover photo? I think this would look lovely on that format. So I'm going to copy and paste this element. That's going to be great. So let me bring it over. Paste it. Make it a little bit bigger. And I'm thinking about a print ad when I'm doing this and adapting it later. Just kind of, I don't need these elements anymore. So with a print ad, they'll probably want their website and some other things that they're not going to put on their social media. So let me take, this is a gradient, and this has some transparencies on both sides, or the opacity is reduced to 0. Let's increase that to 100. I want it to be solid on this one. And transparency, let's make that 100% opacity. There we go. So there's our list. Let's make that bigger. Let me see if I can't just make that a solid color. Yeah, let's just do that. Make it a solid color. For the print ad, I might have it the way I had it with the gradient, but for a digital ad, let's keep it simple. Let's do the horizontal version of the logo for this. And so there's your post. Might need to emphasize the text a little more. And let's zoom in on our photo. This is Instagram. We want to have a nice zoomed in photo of our products. Really want to catch people's eye. So you notice how I zoomed in and it kind of brought you more focus on shopping and the products and less on the background. And there we go. We have 3 different kinds of Instagram posts. And we also have an entire array of Facebook posts. And we have one more thing to do, an Instagram story size. And then we're going to move on to a few digital display ads, and our campaign will be done. So an Instagram story ad is going to be 1080 by 920. So let's go ahead and put that on our artboard. And the thing about stories is we can just do one post, but kind of the benefit of having a story is you can tell a story. So in this case, I can do as many different posts as I want. So I want to have maybe 3 in a series. So I have a couple of seconds that each one will be shown. So I want to be mindful of the time restraint of a story. So 1080 by 1920. So 1080 by 1920. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to duplicate. Go ahead and get my artboard. I'm going to duplicate this. So this will be 1. I'm going to click up here to new artboard. It's going to automatically do the same size. 2 and 3. I think this automatically got drugged down. Put that back up there, and let's resize these just because I really like things to line up. So let's go up to edit artboards, and not a requirement. I just like to see them all together, close together in a series. So here it is. So what kind of story can we tell with this particular woman in the bag? So let's go ahead and copy and paste. This will be our final photo in the story. We want people to have our call to action. So our call to action is shop with us, right? So that'll be at the very end for sure. We want to maybe have the logo on each page. A client's going to appreciate that. And let's do the rest of these very image driven. So let's release the clipping mask here. What I think we could do is put the store names on 1, the image of the woman shopping as the starter. Let's go ahead and get that cropped. Going to make clipping mask and send to the back. And we could have a list of our stores, which we already have a nice list of our stores right here. And I wish we had another image to use, and your client could supply that, or you could buy a stock photo to use as another image here. And then shop with us. So let's do that. I'm going to go on a website called Pexels and see if I can't find a couple other compelling images to put in our Instagram story. So I went on pexels.com and I found a couple images that we could use. And what's wonderful about doing a digital campaign is you get to do something different with each platform. So I'm going to do a little bit of a tweak to what we were doing. And I'm going to do a little play on the shop, eat, play. So each one will be a different focus. So this one will be shopping. So we're going to go ahead and take our blue, just duplicating that. And we're just going to say shop. Make it a little bit flatter, make it big, so shop. Of course, I need to tweak that because that doesn't look very elegant, does it? Let's make all that 0. So shop, and then eat. Let's go ahead and get this cropped. Now we may not need the blue, I'm not sure. Yeah, we're going to need the blue. But let's make it a little transparent. And let's reduce the space here. It's not so big. Trying to make it as elegant as possible. Let's make that 88 opacity. So shop, dine, and then this last one will be play. This will be the shot of the mall. Of course, the client can probably provide that one for you. This is a horizontal photo, so I am going to have to crop some out, but that's just the nature of digital ads. You can't show everything. but you can do the best you can. Okay, and let's get our play. Or whatever you want to do. Relax. How about relax? That sounds a little better than play. And then we have our store names, which I'm sure the client appreciates that. We've got to get those store. We can create a fourth one and have the store names at the end. Or we can keep this and bring out that dark background we used at this Instagram square ad. Put that behind here and make all of this text white. And let's feather that even more. Or I can even go up and do a Gaussian blur to really spread that out a lot. It's not letting me do that. Let's see. Let's go to my appearance panel. And let's increase the feather. Let's just do it that way. Let's do it at maximum allowable. There we go. As long as it's still readable, I'm happy. And we can reduce the spacing to help the readability. We can even make this a different color. Ooh, I know. I have an idea. I'm going to make a blue box. Get our blue color. There we go, relax. So you can kind of see the image underneath. And I could even do let's get our transparency. Let me do a blending mode. I'm going to do luminosity. And I am going to see if I can feather it, feather the edges, and reduce the opacity. Let me add a drop shadow. I still can't read that text. Let me move this out of the way, move this out of the way, and let's make that a much darker blue. Make it a darker blue so when we bring that over top, there we go. Now we can read the text a little better and do a drop shadow. Let that drop shadow be more blurred. Make it 100%. There we go. I think that needs tweaking. I don't think I can get away with the photo being so bright, so let's reduce it. So there's our kind of Instagram story that'll be loaded similar to the previews I was showing you right before this section, where you have, it stays for 5 seconds and it flips to the dying one, and then 5 seconds it'll flip to that one. So there's our little Instagram story that we created. We could send all of these off to the client. We have probably 10 to 12 different versions of social media campaigns. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And what's wonderful once again about using the artboard system is this is all easy to export. So we're going to export all of these as JPEGs. That's going to be your standard format that everybody wants. So what's wonderful about using the artboard system in Adobe Illustrator is I can export these all in a few seconds. So once I'm happy and I'm ready to get some client approval on these, I'm going to go to File, Export, Export As, and I'm going to go ahead and click on the Use Artboards. It's going to clip everything down to the artboard. So if you don't click this, it'll export this really huge document, and it'll include everything outside of your artboard. So you don't want to do that. So click on Use Artboards, and let's make this a JPEG. Click on Export, and I don't want to have the largest file possible, so I'm just going to back it off a notch to maybe 8. It doesn't matter. I'm just trying to make the file size a little smaller. And go ahead and click on Screen. Me personally, if I can get away with it, I will always export as high. Because a lot of this Facebook and Instagram, when you upload a 300 ppi, which is a really high resolution, print resolution quality, those those platforms will automatically resize it down to where it needs to be. So for me personally, I like uploading very high resolution and let them downgrade, as opposed to loading a 72 DPI and maybe I miss out on the opportunity to have a high resolution image somewhere. So me personally, I like to sometimes do medium or high. But 72 is your standard. That's the one that's most acceptable on digital, but I love to do a higher resolution. If the file size is too large, go back, do screen. It'll reduce the file size quite a bit. So if you have a problem with the file size being too large, stick with 72 DPI. But otherwise, I love my images looking great. So 300 PPI is what I recommend for exporting digital images. So right now it's exporting, and what's wonderful is I have all these exported as a JPEG. Instead of having all these individual files floating around, I have one file. My entire social media campaign for this mall is all right here. Instagram, Facebook, and I even have the stories. So here we are. Let me go ahead and double click on all these. We can preview, make sure they look good. Of course, I'm on a Mac right now, so it's going to look different for you. Love it. We can kind of take a look at our campaign, zoom out, kind of see if we like that particular look, see if we can't get client approval on a lot of these images. There's the profile pic. There's kind of a standard image that they could use. Great. I'm very happy with this campaign. I hope you enjoyed sitting along with me. I wanted to do kind of a raw, real, practical design project with you guys, and I didn't plan this ahead. I kind of, you could just kind of see exactly what I do for a real world client. I have a client just like this. I just changed the name just for privacy for my client. But this is real world stuff. This is stuff I do every day. This is how I make a lot of my money, is doing some of these digital ads. And of course there's print campaigns as well. So I'd love to add that as an additional bonus part of the course, maybe in the coming months. But hopefully you had a great time and you learned a little bit about the process of how to do professional graphic design work.